I won't even tell you the posters I had on my wall.
Well, better have been there. Come on. 90s heartthrob and all that. Come on.
Hello everyone and welcome to Intimacy 360. I'm Ian West, your host, and I'm so thrilled to have you here. Join me on this journey whilst we look at intimacy in TV, film and theatre. Gary Lucy is one of the most well-known and much-loved faces of British TV, having starred in Hollyoaks, Footballers' Wives, The Bill and EastEnders. He's also been seen shimming sequins into the final of Dance on Ice, stripping naked for the full Monty and acting alongside Ray Winstone in the thriller mystery She's Gone. Please welcome Gary Lucy to Intimacy 360. Gary Lucy, so good to have you here. Thank you for
West, coming. My favourite.
Thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, brilliant. It's just such a joy to have you here. As I said into my introduction, you've worked in nearly all the soaps.
I've done the rounds.
You've done the rounds. You nearly all the soaps. And obviously working in soaps for so many years as well. You've worked with so many co-stars and have to actually build up relationships with them.
Yeah.
What steps do you take to ensure that you've got a comfortable working environment when working with your co-stars?
Depends who it is. It's really important, especially if you're going to be working closely with someone, to kind of understand them and understand them understand you, and try to build and take down any of the invisible kind of walls that may be there. So I tend to take them all out for a bit of lunch or a bit of dinner, or if they're, if we're working for a period of time, which is generally the case.
Yeah.
Just try and, get to know them and off camera, whenever they say cut, just as long as not to be intrusive if they've got things to do, but just try and get to know them and get to see that Gary's all right and, hopefully they're all right. Not always the case. No names mentioned. But yeah, I just think it's really important to kind of build that. So when you're on camera that, you're obviously as natural and as comfortable with each other as you possibly can be.
But with that in mind, it's also really important to build that relationship with crew. But also when you build up a relationship with people you're playing opposite, it might be you're playing the father to a son, mm-hmm. or somebody you're working with who's playing your partner. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, you've played characters who are straight, you've been characters who are gay, characters who are bisexual. The full gamut, nearly.
You know me.
The full gamut. And when you're working with somebody and maybe they've not played a breadth of characters like you have, how do you find that?
Well, I mean, how long have you got? I mean, for instance, comes to mind most recently, I played the father of a young character in Hollyoaks when I went back into it. It was a great storyline, and it was all to do with the grooming of young kids with the football managers. Wow. And his name was Aiden Duckworth, wonderful actor, lovely young kid. He won't mind me saying it because I used to call him my boy. He saved in my phone as my boy. He's not my boy, but you know. And I remember he's a young boxing background, young kid, macho, whatever. And I remember similarities with kind of my background, which we'll touch on no doubt shortly, of when I had my first initial storyline in Hollyoaks, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But he came into that role and he was literally cast on the Friday and starting on the Monday.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did the read through with him. I know, right?
It's like chucked into the deep end.
Right. And it was going to be.
And the power dynamics of coming on set, working with people, known actors, and suddenly you're playing opposite your dad's Gary Lucy, and all these things, they all play a huge part. And then suddenly you'll go, okay, now act as if that's your son and that's your dad. That's quite a lot for some young kid to take on.
100%. And he'd never even been on a set. So
wow.
I did the read through with him, and I had this technique. I took him down to set first of all and showed him that's a boom op, that's a mic, that's a this.
Amazing.
Because you're going to get on set and go, whoa, and now action, and you're going to be
panicking. Also,
and putting in a very, talking about intimacy, putting in a situation that maybe you're not quite comfortable with.
Of course.
So I showed him all that and said, listen, I'm here for you. I'm with you the whole way through. Any questions, anything, I'm here, because it's important for me as his father in the show as well to be able to, if I'm going to hug or give him a kiss like I would my son, then I don't want him to recoil. He needs to be comfortable.
Yeah,
we've had this relationship. So my way, I grabbed hold of him and I gave him a hug and I held him for that little bit too long. And he talks about this now. And I did it on purpose because I wanted him to feel like, what's going on?
Okay.
And I let go and I went, how was that? He went, oh, yeah. And I went, it was supposed to be uncomfortable. It's because at the end of the day, if I want to hug you as my son in a moment in the scene, you need to be able to let all that bravado, all that stuff go, because I'm your dad, you're my son, and this is the relationship we're going to have. And if I want to get your face like that and I'm going to give you a kiss as my son, then that's what we're going to do. And you know what? It was one of the best working relationships I've ever had. And he said himself in interviews and stuff since that, you know, it really, really helped him. So it was a job well done by me. But
Amazing. I mean, like, and obviously that was what, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, probably about 4 years. Or years,
So really, like at that point, like now there would most probably be an intimacy practitioner brought in on that moments as well that would help advocate for the actors. And one of the things I do is a hug to connect. That's actually one of the things I do. Okay, so we're going to check in with each other. One of the first things I do is I say, okay, should we start with a hug to connect?
Wow.
That's one of the first things I do. And they go, okay, and we go in, we have a hug.
Yeah.
And then we release. And looking back, like, so he's like, how old did you say was?
Oh, he was 17 maybe when he started.
How old was you when you went into Hollyoaks?
The same age. Exactly
there you go.
The same, yeah.
And you played Luke Morgan.
Correct.
In Hollyoaks. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the first sort of storylines you did, which was really, intimate and impactful storylines, was you dealing with the storyline of male rape.
Correct.
Which for an 18-year-old who, I mean, I know you'd worked before Hollyoaks at 18, but that's such a huge storyline for anybody, let alone an 18-year-old. And especially, we are talking not too long ago.
1999.
1999.
Yeah.
And
roughly.
You go, back then, I mean, that's really hard hitting. When you got that script, or you were told in, a meeting that your storyline was going to go down that route, what was your initial thoughts and reactions?
So I remember it vividly. I was my character at the time I was being bullied, etc. in the show, and I was got a call saying the exec producer wants to see you, which is Jo Hallows, who I love. She's wonderful. She gave me my biggest break. She put the most trust in me. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. Still in touch with her now. She's amazing. She's called me up. You go and see Jo Hallows. I thought, well, that's it. Luke's going to be gone. It's how it's going to be.
He's a goner.
Yeah, and then she said to me, it was like a Friday night, and she said, afternoon, whatever, early evening. She said, we've been thinking we want to cover this. It's never been covered before on British TV. A male rape storyline. We're going to do it properly. We're going to do it sensitively. It's going to be hard hitting. We're going to put it in one of the late night episodes so we can show a little bit more.
Yes.
We're going to, make a big splash with this, and we're entrusting you with it. Go away, because I was like, male rape, what?
Yeah.
Because it was so taboo.
People didn't talk about it.
100%. Go away, speak to your mum, your dad, your agent, come back to me on Monday, and I want to have an answer. Great.
Right, okay.
So I went home, spoke to my mum. She was like, wow, amazing. What a great opportunity. Spoke to my agent, the same. Spoke to my dad. My dad went, oh, I don't like the sound of that. That only happens in prisons, doesn't it? Which is exactly why you do it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I went back in and we worked on this storyline. They were fantastic. The show in the, back then with what they had and everything didn't have what now you offer.
Well, this is it. In 1999, there was no real talks of intimacy garments or exactly.
You're joking.
Or
a cold wet night in Cheshire. It was. Bent over a car. It was. It was roof. It was.
full on.
Yeah.
And with that, like you say that it's like them, because for me, I've watched the footage of that scene, but also the shower scene after.
Yeah.
Which is full on.
That's probably more powerful actually than the scene. I think the shower scene. Don't you think?
As an actor at 18 years old, that's quite some having to go there.
Yeah.
And, but also look after yourself when you are talking of a time where, there wasn't a huge amount of support for, regarding anything to do with intimacy and consent and all these things. And production houses and, were doing their best of what they knew.
Yeah.
And, we've all been in them situations as actors and dancers, and things, thank God, have changed a lot now.
Mm-hmm.
But, like those scenes, how did you approach it?
So, if I'm honest with you, a bit like what I said with going back to young Aiden, when he had when he had that storyline coming up, I kind of, from my experience before, tried to help him with that, because I remember my background, personal background, again, it was like I had in mind at the time, my friends, what are they going to say? All the idiots, because there's plenty of them out there, in the streets and whatever. What's their reaction going to be? And I had all these, which if you're going to be thinking of that, then you're going to be closed in and not be able to give a true performance. So basically, I had this one evening with two fantastic actors, fantastic friends of mine that I started with and I always looked up to, which was Nicholas Pickard and Jimmy McKenna. And I reached out to both of them at the time. They were in the show in Hollyoaks. One plays Tony, been in it years, like Kim Barlow, and you won't like me saying that. And obviously Jimmy, who's been in loads. And basically, I spoke to them about it, and they both pretty much said, "You're an actor. You got to let go. Just go for it. Just be in the moment." And that's what I did. I really approached it in that way. So I didn't really have much thought for myself. I just kind of went with it. Okay. Now, whether that's right or wrong now, that's more your, field. But I didn't really think of myself. I just kind of went for it. And it worked. And we obviously got the first award for Hollyoaks at the time.
You did.
For the storyline. Just say, drop that one in.
No, absolutely. That was the Soap Awards for Best Actor.
Best newcomer. But they had literally, like Joe Hallows, the exec at the time, was like, if we don't get an award this year, we're not coming back. And we did. I did.
Yeah, so, which is amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Which is amazing.
Incredible.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram and also on the old Tickety Talk. If you don't want to see this face, but you just want to hear my gorgeous voice and grab some intimacy on the go, you can get the extended audio version by following the links below. When I'm working with actors, I think once we've got open, clear communication, that's the key.
Yeah.
And you set boundaries in place, and then you've got that area to play in. And obviously nowadays that would be all choreographed and they would be set and choreographed. But once you've actually got all of that choreography in place, then you've got freedom,
Yeah.
But there is choreographed to make sure that we're working within the boundaries and consent, but also not just of yours, but also I think this is always interesting that, when we see a scene and there's somebody who has been, say, a rape scene, and, we look at the actors on set, a lot of the time they'll go to cut and they naturally, wardrobe and other people always gravitate towards the person who's been the victim. Forgetting the perpetrator is also an actor and having to go to that place as well.
Yeah.
And it's really important we don't forget about them, because they've had to go somewhere
absolutely
really dark. And innately on set, people go, oh my God, okay, and quickly go to help the person that something's been happening to, rather than the person who's had to do to. And
that's
I think it's really important that we naturally don't make that person who's having to play the perpetrator feel even more.
Yeah.
And you're like, they're just doing their job too.
It's really interesting you say that, because obviously I've just said, the first award and all the accolades that I got as the victim. The guy that obviously was the perpetrator,
yes.
He also had all that, and he had a terrible time of it. I couldn't tell you,
you told me before. You told me this before, that people shout out stuff
all the time.
Used to get like,
I did loads of other
shows and slurs and this, that, the other, and
100%. I mean, I did so many other shows after that, and they still went back to that moment. Oh, you're the gay guy. You're whatever. When I went back into the show through Brian Kirkwood, who wanted to revisit the character all these years on after having not dealt with that event in his life, and he was an alcoholic and etc. and had all these demons, because again, like showing the time and the time when it happened, and not having dealt with it and how it could affect someone. So that was a great story to do.
And that scene, you were like, I just want you to say I'm sorry. I just want you to admit it.
There you go. Exactly.
Still looking for that validation that it actually happened to me. My existence has been ruined because of this, but I need your validation that you did it. Yeah. And that's why you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was fantastic. It's such an important thing. And but again, his name's Colin Parry. He'd been off, and from then, and suffered the same, if not more, probably stick. Didn't get the accolades that I was fortunate to get from it. And he'd had his own journey after the show, and coming back in, and he was brave to come back in and revisit the story. But yeah, that is an interesting thing that both parties need the support and need the help.
I agree. Yeah, and it's it's an impactful storyline, but it's impactful not just on screen but off screen, because sometimes, a lot of times, we forget for an actor to go somewhere on screen. A lot of the time, it's affecting them off screen, i.e., being abused on the street, people then getting typecast or this, that, the other, or not getting work because of a role they've played. Which sometimes will stop actors taking really important and incredible roles in stories that need to be told because of the fear of not getting the next job. How, in all of these roles you've played, and you've played hundreds of different roles, like, how do you step in and step out of your character when you've had to go there? Like, I know some actors have a real process. Some actors I know have no process with that. For you, is there anything you ever done or do to step in or step out?
I mean, look at the state of me. Clearly, I'm carrying all of it. No, I do struggle sometimes. I mean, I have struggled to step out, if you know what I mean. For instance, when I was doing that particular storyline, going back to that one at Hollyoaks, I keep going back to.
No, it's very, very important.
It was massive, especially at my age and everything. And it is important. You know, things have moved on, and it's so important that they did move on.
Yeah.
That I remember the night of the raining night in Cheshire when we were in this, wasteland and all that.
And all of that.
Coming out of it, it's a night shoot, it's 4:00, whatever. Jimmy shouldn't have still been up at 4, but let's not talk about that bit. You can keep that in because he won't mind. And I went back and I sat on the couch with him, and I think he was watching some documentary on Sinatra or whatever as he normally did. And I sat next to him and we didn't really speak. And he said, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I sat there and I had a few of his drinks that he had going. And it was just a shock of it all, really, because it was a release that we'd done it, but also, wow, that was heavy. So I had no process of getting out of it, really.
The aftercare, I think, is one of the things that's something we all need to look at in theatre, TV, film. We go in, we do our best work, and we walk off stage or we walk off set, and we expect to just go boom. And we need a process to be able to. At the end of the day, we are just going to our job. We are going to work, and we should be able to then step away from it and go home to our families, our kids, our families, and our lives, and therefore not carry it into that space.
Yeah.
So I think now most production companies and most theatre companies, they have a lot more procedures in place with aftercare, especially when dealing with scenes that are very, 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 very full on and heavy. And
it's important.
It's really important. It's really, really important. And the thing is, it all comes down to the mental health situation. Like, we're able to sit here now and say the words mental health, and 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even people wouldn't discuss that. People wouldn't talk about that, and how that, we just get on with it. We just, I was on a 12-hour shoot. I put myself through this. I came home and I just went boom and just pushed it all down. That's all going to bubble up at some point or another. So, it's important that we do try and find what that is for you to step out from that character or step away from that scene.
100%. I mean, what you're saying there is absolutely a must. I mean, because you're right. It's if you're expected to put yourself, which you should put yourself in that moment. I mean, that's my process. You just put yourself in that exact moment. Then how do you then differentiate between the reality and that? Because you've kind of blurred the lines there.
No, absolutely. With the arc of your career, have you seen?
It's like fucking Noah's Ark.
No, the arc of
that animal.
You've been very, very successful.
Still floating.
Yeah, still out there hustling it, still doing the good jobs. With the arc of your career, would you say that the type of intimacy you've been asked to do throughout it is changing more in recent years in the light of intimacy practitioners? Or do you still feel as, maybe you're asked to get your top off as often as you had been in the past?
Oh, well, I put it down to age and what it looks like underneath the top. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, this is really new, all this stuff. It's so important, but it's really new. And I don't know how much of it is through what I've worked on through the years, even to the end. I mean, there is more sensitivity. It has been more sensitivity, going forward, and different production companies, implement more. Like David Pugh was great, and he had his own approach for Full Monty, which I worked with you on. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the whole actual role of an intimacy director is so new.
Yes.
I don't think I've had the pleasure of actually having that, the benefit of that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that, because I think like of like somebody's coming down the stairs to answer the telephone. They come downstairs and they've got just haven't had their top off, or they're doing the iron and they've just happened to go. We do see a lot of gratuitous nudity in TV and whatnot, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
I love it.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's like each show that might be sort of like, you know, it's target audience, and you've got you know, and there is an element of that, and there's times when nudity and all of that's not needed for the storyline, and in some ways gets in way of it. And you know, and it is gratuitous and baiting, and sometimes it's not needed, but it depends on what sort of genre of TV you're watching. I really do believe that. Because sex does sell, we know that. And if you've got
off my backside,
there you go. There you go. And if you've got like, you know, a massive big teen like following and whatnot, you know, these young actors have, and all of this sort of stuff, and you know, they've want, you know, I grew up with posters on my, I won't even tell you the posters I had on my wall.
Well, better have been there. I mean, come on, 90s heartthrob and all that. Come on.
Actually, I actually think it was Jason Donovan.
Wow.
Sorry, Gary.
Wow.
Like I say, so with TV and film now, do you feel like the intimacy? Do you see as much gratuitous intimacy in TV and film now as you did than when you first started in soaps?
Probably not. No, I mean, maybe some of the programs I watch on Netflix and Amazon, maybe I do see, but I also think it'd be a shame to, like you say, it's very genre and audience kind of you know, tailored or whatever, and it'd be a shame to go too far, because sex does sell, and I also like watching a program where there's good-looking, sexy people, or you know, some kind of sexual dynamic or whatever going on, and to shy away from it too much cheats the audience as well, because you see so much now on YouTube and on every outlet online that I think sometimes, as long as it's handled properly by someone like yourself.
Well, that's the thing. I actually think it's in some ways really good. I actually think that there's actually been more nuanced intimacy scenes in TV and film of late, because there's been intimacy practitioners on there. And this is the thing. I think a lot of time people think that, oh God, I've got an intimacy coordinator coming on, and they're going to be like, you know, the fun police. Like, but the truth is, if you've got an actual clear, open communication, a way of working, and you actually set choreography, and actors feel absolutely safe in what they're doing, when they feel safe, then it's going to be no surprise. It enables them to be able to do their best work, because they don't go, because sometimes if you're acting and suddenly you think, oh God, is the hand going to go somewhere it shouldn't go? You're thinking about that, not necessarily about actually what you're doing. So if you've actually got the exact choreography set down, and you can really then just chuck it all out and go for it within them parameters and that choreography.
Makes sense.
And it allows you to do your best work. And also, you know, the script supervisor loves you because continuity, because you're repeating the same over and over again. I
think it's really important what you're saying there, that if you're given that clear, because also there's not just what am I going to be comfortable with, it's what are they going to be comfortable with when you're doing the scene. Like, I can remember a few scenarios where I'm supposed to be, you know, the dominant, if you like, if you can use that word, in the scene, and it says, and he, you know, grabs said character, puts them against the wall and kisses them passionately, takes them by surprise, if you like. Not in a non-consensual way, but that's the kind of the way it was written. And it's very vague as that, basically. And then so you're going, right, okay, so my character is going to be the dominant here, but I'm dealing with another human being, and it's not really laid out as to what, you know, it should be done. So therefore, if I was to get you by the back of the hair, or can I get you grab you by the face, is this too much? Am I then seen as someone who's not, you know, working within the boundaries?
Not respecting somebody? And this is it. And you've got somebody advocating for you and go, okay, so the person, you know, you have an open, clear communication, conversation, you both know what areas you can and can't touch. And therefore you go, okay, we can block this. You go through the blocking, you're setting clear communication, set the blocking, and therefore allows you to go in there and give it full on.
Yeah. Where have you been for the last 20 odd years? Absolutely. So important.
And it just allows everybody to feel safe and connected. and not in fear of what's going to happen. I think that's half the problem. It's like, okay, it may be, you may get two actors who are really good synergy, work really well together, and they may be able to, work off each other and improvise and stuff like that. But a lot of the times, it's like, you've got a day player turns up and suddenly you've only met them. You've got a little rehearsal and you're meant to be getting intimate with them.
Yeah.
And the power dynamics of that person coming onto a set, especially if it's known actors and they're a day player and they come on and suddenly you're like, okay, yeah, let's get down to it. That's really hard for somebody. I cannot imagine 20 years ago, people coming on just going, yeah, I'm just let's go for it. In your career, you've had to do a fair bit of nudity. Yeah. For different scenes, some like, the rape scene, like the washing yourself in the shower. Yeah. It's horrific.
The amount of shower scenes in Footballers' Wives is just unbelievable.
Oh, was there lots?
It was every day. I mean, they didn't even use the scenes. It was just me in the shower. No.
And of course, like, things are changing now, like, they would have intimacy garments and things like that, But when you've watched TV or a TV film or theatre, is there any intimacy moment in any show you could think you watched and went, God, that was good?
On what level? I mean, I love rather partial to 365 on Netflix, but remember, we're not going down that route.
I've not seen it.
You should watch it.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Is it current now?
It's very current.
Okay, I bet there'll be an intimacy practitioner on it. So
and if there is, it's wonderful.
I'm going to have to check that out.
You should. So, I mean, there's been loads. I mean, it doesn't have to be gratuitous. It doesn't have to be. It could be a
beautiful, intimate moment.
Definitely, even just the look or the whatever, But I can't think of any off the top of my head. But there's been so many, and not that for the reason that you watch it and go, that was beautiful, or God, that was really sexy, or that was. But yeah, I mean, nowadays, like you say, that would be in place, so it hasn't affected negatively.
Yes.
What you're seeing on screen, which is great. In fact, hopefully, it has enhanced it.
Yeah.
As you say.
I mean, some of my favourite moments in TV intimacy are actually don't involve kissing or simulate sex or anything. It's actually the most littlest moment, the most small intimate moment that is like somebody just sitting in a scene and their hands touching. Some of those little moments, like for me, that help propel a story forward, but in an innocent way. I like, of course, I mean, who doesn't come?
You've just literally, I watched Godfather 2 last night. I mean, I was up watching, I thought I'd watch a trilogy, didn't get through them all.
Okay.
Was it good? No, it was Godfather 3, sorry.
Okay.
I was into, about an hour into. And the cousins, and there's this moment in it where you can tell there's a build up where she likes him, etc. It's first cousins, by the way, but anyway. Yeah. And there's a moment where he's showing her how to cook in his nightclub, and he just touches her there. Adam Garcia, I think his name, and just touched her there, and it was hot. It was enough. You could just see the connection there. It was really lovely.
Well, this is it. Those little scenes, sometimes you don't have to go jumping at the deep end with it. The little moments can really bubble. And you know what? And sometimes there is a wonderful thing about leaving it up to the audience's imagination. Yeah. Sometimes less is more, because, sometimes you just have to let it fester, let it bubble, and let the audience do the rest. Last question.
Last question. Are you trying to get rid of me already?
Oh,
I was enjoying this. Living. Go on.
I would love to know if you could give any advice to any young actor, maybe 18 years old, just coming into the business. Obviously, it's a different time now than when you first started. If you could give any young actor any advice regarding intimacy and scenes of consent-based practice and stuff, what would it be?
Don't do anything you're not comfortable with. Ask for Ian West on the job with you, and I think that's about it really. Just, it's hard because you don't know what situation, where their background, where they're coming from, etc. But I would just say, don't do anything you're not comfortable with, and I just hope, which is what I feel speaking to you and the way things are moving on now, you will be supported. So just enjoy it,
Gary, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on to Intimacy 360.
Now we get naked.
Yay! Mwah.
Love you.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Hey, lovely people. Make sure you subscribe and like and press that notification bell to keep up to date with all future episodes.